please, and just show us the page.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, Professor, we can hear you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Kindly mute yourself. Okay, otherwise I'm going to mute you all. Can you hear me properly? Say that in the chat box. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So dear students, we have been discussing about the methods. Okay, so we have been talking about different methods and different techniques also, different methodologies, different pedagogies of teaching English. All right, so in the previous class, in the last class, we talked about different methodologies. The first one was grammar translation, and the second one was natural approach. The other one was direct method. So we discussed these methods so far, methods and methodologies and approach. Now today, in today's class, we're going to talk about constructive analysis. Constructive analysis.
Sir, please tell me again.
Yeah, today in today's class, we are going to talk about, am I audible to you? Yeah, can you hear me properly?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, so in today's class, we are going to talk about constructive analysis. So constructive analysis in 1980s and 1990s, it was mentioned by a quite lot of scholars. It was mentioned by a lot of scholars. It's a technique basically comparing the linguistic system of two languages. For instance, the pronunciation system or the grammatical structure. So what happens basically in constructive analysis, which happens to be...
Sir, excuse me, sir. Which unit, sir?
This is the very, we are talking about the theoretical basis of English classroom. That is unit second, right? The block first to unit second. So it talks about, yeah, this was the unit basically talks about different techniques, different methods, approach of English language teaching. So that is what we are discussing. We have been discussing from the previous class. So constructive analysis is a technique which has been developed by in 1980s and 1990s. This technique was developed by scholars, by a lot of scholars. It's a technique basically which compares the linguistic system of two languages. For instance, the pronunciation system. So it actually takes up two systems. It actually talks about, or it makes a comparison between two languages. For example, the two say these two different domains of language. For example, if we talk about the pronunciation system or the pronunciation part of a language, pronunciation part and the grammatical structure. So what is the function of this method? What is the function of this technique rather, is that it makes a comparison between the two domains, that is the pronunciation system or the pronunciation part of a language and the grammatical structure. So basically this technique, we can say, is based on the foundations that the main difficulties in learning a language are mainly due to the intrusion from the mother tongue. Okay, so basically this method this technique rather talks about the this technique talks about the main difficulties learners face or students face when they learn a language, when they learn a target language, say for example English. Okay, so they argue that it happens because of the intrusion, because of the influence of mother tongue. You call it in language studies, you call it as mother tongue influence. There is always an influence. Say, for example, Telugu speakers, you might be, influenced by your mother tongue in when it comes to pronunciation part, when it comes to accent, when it comes to all features of spoken English. So basically, it makes a comparison between the two domains of a language, and it also talks about how target language, how English is influenced by mother tongue of learners. Okay, so the difficulties which might appear during teaching and learning can be forecasted using this technique. So it basically, first of all, you have to remember that it makes a comparison between the two domains of a language. Say, for example, if you take the example of pronunciation part, it kind of makes a comparison between the grammar of a language, of a particular language or a target language, with the pronunciation part. And it is basically, it talks about it is based on the foundation that the main difficulties in learning a new language, in learning a target language, is mainly due to the intrusion, due to the influence, we can say, of mother tongue. So this is called the mother tongue influence, as I already told you. Okay, so that is one of the techniques that is called as constructive analysis. The other is audio lingual method. Do you follow me? Dear students, do you follow me?
Yes,
I
sir.
hope you're following me.
Yes,
See
sir.
it in the chat. Okay, all right. The other method is audio lingual method. So what happens in audio lingual method? This pedagogy emphasizes that teaching, speaking and listening should be in the earlier stage of teaching, reading and writing. So this method argues that the teaching of a language, speaking and listening a language should be in the earliest stage of teaching, reading and writing. Okay, so it basically talks about that teaching, speaking, all these skills should be done in the first stage of teaching a language. Okay, and this method also
Not audible, sir.
able to attain their occasion when they can accumulate the knowledge of the target language. So basically, this method talks about that the instructors, that the teachers should utilize target language. That is, for example, we are talking about English. So instructors or learners, teachers of English, we should utilize target language to lecture. So it means that we should make use of target language. We should make use of English, at the time of teaching. So that students will be able to attain the occasion where they can accumulate the knowledge of the target language. So that there are different methodologies, there are the different methods. So this method basically talks about that a language, for example, English should be taught in English, Hindi should be taught in Hindi. Here we are speaking in the context of English language teaching. So this method talks about that the instructors, the learners, or the teachers of English should utilize target language to in their lecturing or in the class, so that the students will be able to attain the proficiency of a language. And it also argues that students are accumulating when their knowledge of the target language, they are at the same time recognizing the difference between the target language and the mother tongue. So it also lays emphasis that when you teach a target language to the students, when you teach a target language to the to your learners, it basically recognizes or it makes the students familiar between the differences, okay, between the various, it may be in the context, linguistic differences. Students actually try to recognize the differences between target language and their mother tongue. Say, for example, in terms of pronunciation, in terms of vocabulary, in terms of lingual method. The other method is the other technique. So when we are talking about, we are talking about techniques, different techniques here. We are talking about different methodologies of teaching English. At the same time, we are talking about different pedagogies. These are actually three things here. Now, one is method, excuse me. Other one is approach, and the third one is technique. So we are actually talking about all these things, method, approach, and techniques at the same time. Okay, so don't get confused. Now, if you ask me what is an approach, we must be able to make a difference. What is an approach? Approach is, see, for example, we have many theories when we talk about English language teaching. So approach are actually hypotheses, we can say, the theories, a statement about a language. So there are different theories, there are different schools of when you trace out the teaching of English, the history of teaching of English. So we talk about, there was a school called structuralism, and there was this school called behaviorism. They have and later after 1980s and 1990s, this school was developed. It was called as constructivism. So there are various schools, we can say. There are different theories or different hypotheses which have been formulated by linguistics, by language known people. So there are various principles when you talk about a language. So these ideas of learning a language. So principles about a language. How does the learning of a language take place? There are various English language teaching or any language teaching is governed by a set of rules, a set of principles. So that is called as approach. Second is, the other thing is called as technique. Now, what is a technique? Technique is actually the physical manifestation. Now, for example, we talk about the theories. A particular theory talks about that this method or this approach or this technique, for example, should be implemented in an English teaching classroom. Now, how do you actually, the technique refers to the interactive skills, the physical manifestation of all these principles, the physical manifestation of all these group discussion or a debate in a classroom. So that is what is what is technique all about. One second. Yeah. Can you hear me? Hello, guys. Can you hear me properly?
Yes, sir. Hearing.
It is breaking. In the middle, it is breaking.
Okay. Sometimes the connection may be unstable and all. That is why I thought that I'm disconnected for a while, but I think, yeah. So can you hear me now? Shall I stop my video so that you can hear me properly? Okay.
No, sir, it's okay now.
Okay. All right. All right. Yes. Yeah, somebody's making noise. I don't know. I have muted everybody. I don't know who's making noise. Yeah, Renuka, mute yourself. Yes. So we have been talking about these things called, I told you that there is something called as approach. The other thing is called as technique. Now, approach, I told you, approach is basically a theory. Approach is basically an hypothesis. What is a hypothesis? A hypothesis is a statement you make, which can be proved or disproved. So approach is basically a principle. Approach is basically a theory, a language theory. There are various language theories we talk about. So technique, on the other hand, we were technique is actually the physical manifestation of these principles. Technique is basically the physical manifestation of the theories developed in a particular language. Okay, so physical manifestation of the principles, physical manifestation of the theory is technique. Say for example, I told you that if you go for a group discussion in a classroom, which is interactive in nature. So group discussions, role plays, just a minute. So carrying out all these activities basically, which are interactive, or which is these activities, debates, for example, seminars, okay, say PowerPoint presentations, slide presentation, PowerPoint presentations. So all these things, these are called as techniques in the language. So physical manifestation as. And the other thing is method. Then we say methodology. Okay, methodmatic set of teaching practices. So method talks about the systematic set of teaching practices, which is based, which is based on a particular theory. So systematic set of teaching practices, method. So that is how they are different. So approach, technique, and method. You should differentiate between they are three different things. So the other technique, yeah, the next one is technique, which is titled as, which is called as total physical response. Total physical response. It's sometimes abbreviated as TPR. Okay, so total physical response. There was this linguist called as Asher, ASHER. In 1977, he developed this language teaching method in which teaching contents are instructed through orders. Now, there was this linguist who developed this teaching method where he talked about different teaching contents. He said that teaching contents, the syllabus, for example, the teaching contents, whatever you're going to teach, should be kind of instructed. They should be instructed through orders, commands. For example, what he meant by that, he said that, for example, students might be called for opening a window or a door when learning the grammatical structure. So he said that how language should be taught. He said that it is through the teaching contents. It's through the syllabus. The students should be instructed through orders. They should be ordered. They should be instructed through order or command, or say a request, for example. See, for example, if you order a student to open a window while learning the grammatical structure. For example, if you ask your student, would you please open the door? Would you please open the door? You are ordering him. So through that sentence structure or through that grammatical structure, through your body actions or through your gestures or through your orders or commands or requests, you try to teach them language. So you basically through the commands, through the requests, or through the through the commands or through the orders, you basically try to teach them the language or the grammatical structure of a sentence or a language. Through body actions. This method basically talks about that language should be taught through body actions. Language should be taught through body language or through gestures, so that student can learn in a clear way. So students can learn a language in a clear way. Say, for example, body language as well as the physical response would lead students to have a deep understanding on the target structure and meaning. So that students, that is why this method is called as total physical response. So there, it involves the physical body. It says that orders students should be asked to do a particular thing. So through orders, through your through the physical response, the students can be taught a language. Students can be taught a grammatical structure of a sentence of a language. Okay. So yeah, do you follow me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the other method is student-centered learning. Now, in the earlier, when we spoke of a method called grammar translation method, we said that, if you remember, we said that it was this method which was earlier developed. So one of the very first method developed in a language, in language teaching, where which actually talked about, which was very conventional in nature, which was very traditional in nature, and it basically talked about the developing the reading proficiency of the students. And it was not student centered. Now the after it comes out after 1980s. In 1980s, this method was developed called as student. This method was this method was called as student-centered learning. So from 1980s, language education based on the concept of students' cooperation is accentuated. So basically, this method, which is known as student-centered learning, the focus was on student participation. The focus was on the students' participation, on the participation of students. Okay, where students, the cooperation of the students was accentuated or needed. So paired discussion or group brainstorming activities are regarded as more significant than the teaching. So it was said, this method argued that pair discussion or the brainstorming activities uh, should be conducted. A teacher or a teacher or an instructor uh, should conduct discussion, pair discussion, or he or she should conduct group discussions or brainstorming activities, which are regarded as more important than the teaching itself. So in student-centered learning, or in this particular method called as student-centered learning, what students were supposed to participate in the activities that the teachers conducted for them in the class. So basically, student, as the name implies, as the title implies itself, that student-centered learning was basically student-oriented. It was student-centered, where the participation of the students was made sure, where the focus was on the participation of students. Where a lot of activities were conducted, where a lot of activities were conducting, like pair discussion, like debates, like group discussions, like various brainstorming activities, and they were regarded as important. They were regarded as significant, we can say. So in student-centered learning, teachers should participate in the activities so that the teachers uh, should conduct for them in the class. So teachers in this particular methods are not they are not like, they should not act, or they do not act as teachers or professors. Rather, they act as consultants, they act as advisors, they act as facilitators, we can say. Instead of acting as teachers, students in this method should uh, are consultants. Okay, they are advisors, they are facilitators. They are not, instead of being teachers, they have to take, they have to play the role of consultant or advisor, facilitator. Student learning about. Okay. Yes.
Professor, please turn off your video. Your voice is breaking a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Fine. Sure. Yes. Hello. Can you hear me now?
Now very clear, sir.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
That's okay.
So please pardon, sir, as you are
So-
disconnected.
Yes. Now I'm back, I think. You can hear me properly, right?
Yes. So last
Yeah, I
segment
was-
of the topic,
yeah.
please repeat it once because we
Achha,
couldn't
yeah.
hear you as it's
Sure.
well.
I will do it. So basically, I told you that student-centered learning, we have been talking about student-centered learning, which basically talks about, basically focuses on the participation of the students, which makes sure that the participation of the students should be more. And students' participation in various activities, for example, a teacher in this particular method is supposed to carry on different activities. So I told you that students should be conducted, students should be asked to take part in pair discussion, students should be asked to participate in different brainstorming activities. Okay, so basically the student-centered classroom, student-centered learning, teaching of language or learning was basically student oriented, as the name itself says. Here in this particular method, teachers act as advisors, teachers act as consultants, act as facilitators. So instead of instead of being professors or teachers or formal teachers, students are, learners, teachers or consultants, teachers or advisors, and teachers or facilitators when we talk about English language teaching, which makes the use of this method. Okay, are you getting me? So basically, we drew a
Yes, sir.
comparison also. Yeah, grammar translation method. I said that it was very conventional in nature. It was not student friendly. Okay, we basically talked about the developing the reading proficiency of students, of learners. Now, this method, which was developed in 1980s, it talked about the student participation. It was completely, we can say, student centered. It was completely learners centered. Okay, the focus of this method was students. The focus of this method was learners. Okay, I hope you are getting, you are following. Is that clear? Yeah, I hope you
Yeah.
might have understood so far whatever I have said, whatever we have discussed so far.
Yes, sir. Please continue.
Yeah. 1 second. Yes. So the other. So there are different other approach also, which is known as interactive approach. So there are approach known as interactive approach. So interactive approach, which it was developed on in 1987 to 2001. These were researchers or linguists known as, namely, River. One was known as River, the other was known as Brown. So they had conducted the research in the classroom through interactive approach. So basically, their approach, the name of their approach was interactive approach, which talked about the language teachers can play as a controller, director, manager, facilitator, the same thing actually. So interactive, since the earlier approach, student to learners approach, it talked about, it said that the participation of the student should be made, that should be compulsory, that should be important, that is better than teaching, and it was very, very interactive in nature when you talk about student-centered learning. And their research also, which is titled as interactive approach, where they talk about interactive approach, which was developed in 1987. They say that these two people say that they were named as River and Brown respectively. they developed this method in 1987 to 2000 and 2001. They said that interactive methods, the language teachers or instructors can play as a controller, as a director, or a manager, or facilitator. So this, they said that the language teacher, the job of a language teacher should be that of a controller, that of a director, that of a manager, that of a facilitator. So he basically, what is the job of a English language teacher is to control, is to direct, is to manage, and is to facilitate. So these are like the different responsibilities of an English language teacher. So he said, so that was basically their main argument. So through student interaction, and the teacher and the student interaction, a class might be more effective due to the frequent interactions appearing in the class. So basically they talked about that students and student interaction should happen, student and the teacher interaction should happen, so that the class becomes effective, so that the class becomes effective, so the teaching and learning process becomes effective. So in reality, the final goal of language learning is for gaining proficiency. So they said that in reality, when we talk about these methods, when we talk about interactive approach, so in reality, the final goal, the ultimate aim or ultimate goal of language learning should be proficiency in terms of speaking, proficient in terms, proficient in terms of speaking, and in fact, in all the language skills, especially in speaking. Okay, so the final ultimate aim of language learning is for gaining proficiency. Therefore, many prestigious professors support this type of practical and authentic type of language learning. So this, we can say this approach, or this interactive approach, was applauded. It was appreciated by many professors, many academicians throughout the globe. They said that it's because they supported it because it was very practical in nature. It was very kind of, it was authentic type of language learning. Okay, one second, give me a second. Yes. Please wait for a minute. One second. Am I audible to you? Hello? Hello?
Yes,
Yes.
Professor, you are audible. Please go ahead.
Okay, fine. Yeah, give me a second one. Yes, 1 second. So can you see the screen? Hello?
Yes, Professor, we can see the screen.
And yeah, so so can you see the screen? So
Yeah, it's
basically
clear,
this,
sir.
so these pages talk about interactive approach. So I was talking about these people called Wilga Raver in 1987 to and 2001 of Harvard University. She's a female scholar, and the other guy called Brown. So they developed this research which talked about interactive approach. Okay, so what does she say? Let's see. Let us look at the text at what they have said. So Wilbur Howard University is the senior female scholar that devotes a great deal of her research into the field of interactive approach. She defines interactive pedagogies through the following statements. So what she defines interactive pedagogies as follows. Through interaction, students can increase their language store as they listen to or read authentic linguistic material. Okay, so she said that through interaction, student can develop their language. Student can develop they can become proficient. They can become fluent when they actually listen or when they read the linguistic material, any language material, which is authentic, and even the output of their fellow students in discussion, skits, joint problem solving tasks, or dialogue journals. So she basically said that when they participate in discussions and skits and other brainstorming activities, they can develop their language. So in interaction, student can use all they possess of the language, all they have learned or casually absorbed. So in real life exchanges, even at the elementary stage, they learn in this way to exploit the elasticity of language. So this basically, her research is devoted to what? Interaction. So she look, if you look at the text carefully, she has used the word interaction repeatedly. So she focuses. So this researcher from a Harvard University who talks about interactive approaches. Okay, she basically talks about, she puts focus on interaction of the student. She says that students should be asked to participate in different activities. And the other guy called Professor River uploaded her created 10 principles of interactive approach online, and English teachers intended to raise learners' practical ability of applying English can follow the 10 principles as follows. So Professor River, the other guy from Harvard, who kind of collaborated. So it's a collaborative work, which is a collaborative work. The work done by both these people. That is River, who is a female professor from Harvard University, and this guy, professor called River. Okay, so he actually gives us 10 principles of language interaction. Okay, so please have a look. Principle 1 says the student is the language learner. The student is the language learner. Second is language learning and teaching are shaped by students' needs and objectives. Language learning and teaching are shaped by students' needs and objectives in particular circumstances. So it is governed, language is governed by needs and objectives in particular circumstances. And the third principle talks about language training, learning and teaching are based on normal use of language. So with communications of meaning in oral or written form, so you have different forms of language. Oral, we talk about spoken form of language. We talk about written form of language. So he says that they are basic to all strategies and techniques. Language learning and communication of meanings are in various forms, whether written in written form or oral form, are basic to the techniques, are basic to all the strategies. Principle 4 is classroom relations reflect mutual liking and respect, allowing for both teacher personality and student personality in a non-threatening atmosphere of cooperative learning. So basically, this says that the classroom, there has to be mutual respect and liking for the teacher and the student, and the environment, has to be non-threatening. It has to be, say, cooperative. It has to be friendly in the environment, so that the process of teaching and learning becomes effective. Principle 5, basic to use of language or language, basic to use of language or language knowledge and language control. Okay, so development of language control proceeds through creativity. Development of language control proceeds through creativity. So he talks about that development of language can take place, is possible only through creativity, which is nurtured by interactive participatory activities. So when we talk about the creativity in language, it can be done through interaction. It can be done by participating in interactive or participatory activities. So principle 7 is he has laid down 10 principles. So every possible medium and modality is used to aid learning. Every possible medium and modality is used to aid learning. So testing is an aid to learning. He also talks about testing is in fact is one of the chapters we will be doing. So testing, we talk about testing. There are tests to be done in a language class, evaluation testing. We will talk about it in the last block of your syllabus. Language learning is penetrating another culture. Students learn to operate harmoniously with it or in contact with it. So language learning is like penetrate. It talks about it. Is it penetrates another culture? It talks about other culture. You learn things from other culture. The real world principle 10. The last principle, the real world extends beyond the classroom walls. Language learning takes place in and out of the classroom. I think that is the most important of all. He says that real world extends beyond the classroom. So, see, for example, if you have to develop a language, if you have to, one is supposed to develop a language or learn a language, it's not a, it is not a, you cannot learn a language or you cannot develop a language in a week or within a week or within a year. It takes your whole life. It is, it takes a lot of time. It takes, in fact, it takes you learn a language throughout your life. Okay, so that is what he says. He says that the real world extends beyond the classroom. Okay, language learning takes place in and out of the classroom. Yes, who is talking?
Praveen, sir. Praveen, mute yourself.
In LinkedIn, open this.
So, Professor, yeah, can you hear me, guys? Am I audible
Yes,
to you?
sir.
Yeah, okay. So, Professor Vilga M. Rever, 2001, interactive approach maturely and professionally. She emphasizes that English teachers have responsibilities to teach through interaction and make that the learners are learning in an effective and interesting environment. Her metaphor created for clarifying interactive approaches philosophical. Okay, so as she says, she notes in language teachings come and go. Reassurance that there is some bedrock beneath the shifting sand. Okay, she basically talks about on student participation.
So your voice is breaking again.
Defines interaction as the collaborative exchange of thoughts, feelings, and ideas between two or more people, resulting in a reciprocal effect on each other. Okay, so he says interaction can be defined as the collaborative exchange of thoughts, feelings, or ideas between two or more people, which results into learning, which results into make an effect on each other. Theories of communicative competence emphasize the importance of interaction and human beings use in various contexts to negotiate, meaning or simply stated, to get an idea out of one person's head or into the head of another person and vice versa. From the very beginning of language study, classroom should be interactive. So basically the term which they repeatedly use is interaction. So indeed from now we can conclude that from research point of view, interactive approaches have emerged in an obvious way. Say, for example, we talk about interaction. So we can say more significantly, they are accepted and applied by many English teachers in language institutions. For example, in Taiwan, he takes the example of Taiwan. So he says that English teachers in non-native, say for example, Taiwan, Japan, and all the China and other all these countries, teachers in non-native areas are trying to look for different ways of interactions in order to raise students' ability of practical communication in international situations. Therefore, this is the reason why one of research students in English major at National University of Taiwan who would like to be a teacher in the future regarded Brown's teaching of principles and interactive, which is he talks about his book. He says that this book, Brown's book, which is titled as Teaching of Principles, was regarded as Bible for the English teacher. So the student's statement might not be an exaggeration, since Dr. Brown agreed with Professor Rivers' ideal philosophy and developed interactive pedagogies in teaching, listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So basically, they say that teachers in non-native areas are trying to look for different ways of interaction in order to raise students' ability of practical communication in international situations. Okay, so the next. So basically, these people focused on what? Interaction. Okay. Okay. Can you see this? Yeah. Are you in the position to see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay.
Folks, when you're asked
Yes.
to speak, everybody remove yourself from mute and talk. I cannot always talk on your behalf. So please take some effort. Acknowledge your professor when he's asking you something. It's a request. Please continue,
Yes.
Professor.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, you can. Otherwise, you can do that in the chat box. So no need of speaking, because that way the class actually gets disturbed. You can always. Yeah. So you can always say that in the chat box. Chat box is always there. So the other method is computer, as on your screen you can see computer assisted language learning. So when we talk about this, one is, for example, if you go to any engineering institute or if you join any engineering college anywhere, you have the lab called uh, English language communication skills lab. Okay, English language ELCS. It is titled as, it's called as, abbreviated as English Language Communication Skills Lab. Okay, now that English Language Communication Skills Lab is divided into CALL, which is called as Computer Assisted Language Learning, and the other is ICS. So these are basically the two sub labs in an English lab. Wherever you go. So one is CAL. CAL refers to computer assisted language learning. The other is interactive communication skills. So we have been talking about interaction. We have been talking about interactive communication skills. So the interactive communication skills, we ask students to go for group discussions for just a minute, brainstorming activities.
Sir, your voice is not clear,
Brown
sir.
and one second. Yeah, my connection is unstable, was unstable for a while. I hope
It's
now it
stucking,
is
sir.
back to
Sir,
normal.
are you on a
Yeah.
wireless or a wired connection? Are you on data?
Yes.
Are you on data?
Yes, data, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we don't mind waiting 30 seconds. Could you just turn off your data, turn it back on? It might improve performance.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, can you hear me properly now? Can you hear me now? Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, please
We
speak
will-
out. Who
Yes, sir.
can't hear you? We can hear, sir. Who can't hear, sir? Let's take a pause for 10 seconds. You can even use the chat window.
Sandhya Rani, please mute yourself. Yeah. TV. Yeah. Who's the other guy? Okay.
I can check, Professor.
Okay. All right.
Everyone's muted.
Okay. Yeah.
Everyone who can and can't hear,
Okay.
sir, could we have an acknowledgement in the chat window, please? I don't want to hold the lecture any further. So I take your silence to acknowledgement. Now no one says we can't hear you.
Yeah.
Sir, please
Chandana.
continue.
Okay. Fine. Yes. 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 Thank you. So. So I was talking about CAL. I was talking about English lab in different institutes. So I was basically talking about CAL and ICS lab. So I said that CAL computer assisted language learning, and on the other hand, the other lab is called as which is in fact a sub lab. Both CAL and ICS are regarded as sub labs in any English language communication skills lab. When you talk about any engineering institute or any professional institute for that matter. So basically CAR refers to computer assisted language learning, where we are going to discuss it now. But ICS lab refers to interactive communication skills, where you ask students to go for different interactive activities. For example, brainstorming activities. You can ask them to go for group discussions, for seminars, for debates, group discussions. Okay, so you can provide them enough a number of brainstorming activities. So that is what is ICS all about. But now we're going to talk about computer assisted language learning, as you can see on your screen also. So computer assisted language learning, CAL, was developed because of the speedy development of computer science technology. Many teachers of English in school are assisted with computing equipment for their students. So basically, the PowerPoint presentation is one of the most typical ways of computer assisted language learning. So what happens in this type of computer in language learning is that students are asked to sit on a computer, and there's a particular, for example, software which has been already there in the system, which has been downloaded already in the system. That with the help of that software, there are different contents, is so that students can perform activities based on different language skills, that is listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So when we talk about, now there are different softwares are being used when we talk about computer assisted language learning. For example, Walden can be one of the softwares, and there are other softwares also for that matter. So basically, we ask the students to sit on a system where they make use of this Walden software or any other English software, which is based on different language skills, where students are asked to carry activities on speaking different language skills, all the four skills, that is language, that is listening, speaking. There may be a content in terms of speaking. For example, there may be activities based on speaking. For example, students, there may be lectures of Abraham Lincoln, for example, or other great personalities. Okay, so they are supposed to listen. Barack Obama or other personalities. So listening, speaking can be, yes, that is done with ICS lab, right? ICS part of the lab, and basically listening and writing, also writing. Basically, speaking is focused on the computer, speaking and reading, also speaking and reading, and then other two skills are covered in communications, this speaking activities, I mean that interactive communication skills. So basically, the PowerPoint presentation is one of the most typical ways of computer assisted language learning. Language learning through laptops, smartboard, internet, etc. in class is much welcomed by both teachers and students. So this language learning, which is done through laptops, through smartboard, through internet, etc., in which both teachers and students are welcome. Who's that? Who's making the noise? There's some disturbance. Yeah. Hemalata, please mute yourself.
Capital letter P, small letter S. Please mute yourself. Professor, please continue.
Yeah.
Sir, we can't hear you. You're muted. Professor, can you hear us?
Can you hear me now? Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, Professor, we can hear you now.
Yeah,
You
okay,
muted
okay,
yourself
okay.
and everybody. Please continue.
Yes. Okay. So computer assisted language learning basically talks about learning a language through laptops, smartboard, internet, etc., in which in class, which is welcomed by both teachers and students. So it's a very dynamic and self-motivated type of learning, which is stimulated, or which can be stimulated because of the efficiency and effectiveness brought by technology. So basically, this is a type of language learning which is very dynamic in nature, which is self-motivated, which is highly appreciated, we can say. So many curricula and pedagogies introducing how a class can be accomplished have been created, because it is currently required by not only teachers and administrators of school, but also students and parents. So this interactive, this kind of learning makes students learn in an independent and interesting way. So this is very dynamic. This makes the students of the class participate. So it is very dynamic, and it's very independent and interesting way of teaching language to the learners, to the students. So with its characteristics of individual learning, students do not have to wait for their classmate understanding the same content. And instead, they are able to control their own step of learning and enjoy the speedily progress assisted by the computer technology. So basically, this talks about the learning which is highly appreciated, which is very independent, which is very interesting in nature. So in conclusion, we can say that in the era of globalization, many language learners. So in conclusion, we can say that in the era of globalization, many language learners set their learning objectives on interacting with foreigners through English in order to be integrated in the world as a universal citizen. Okay, so in conclusion, we can say in the era of globalization, many language learners set their learning objectives on interacting with foreigners through English in order to be integrated in the world as universal citizen. Therefore, for example, in non-native countries like Taiwan or Japan or China, many language institutions are established in order to provide the language learners need of learning English communication. Generally speaking, recent teaching methodologies as well as the language pedagogies mostly focus on mostly yeah uh, 1 second. Hello. Yeah, can you hear me? So I was talking about in concluding this, we can say that in this in the area of globalization, many language learners or many language teachers set their learning objectives on interacting with foreigners through English in order to be integrated in the world as a universal citizen. So therefore, in Taiwan, in many non-native countries, we can say like Japan, like China, many language institutions are established in order to provide the language learners need of learning English communication. So generally speaking, we can say that recent teaching methodologies which have been developed recently, and we have been talking about these different methodologies also, as well as the language pedagogies mostly focus on immerse environment. So mostly they focus on what? Immerse environment, a kind of interactive environment, or a more active training way through which students can apply English as a real tool for communication. So these methodologies, we can say that these methodologies or these pedagogies focus on uh, immerse environment or more active training. These are like the more active training ways through which students can apply English as a real life tool of communication. Okay, so that is what we have said in conclusion. Okay, uh, any question, anything? If you want to uh, interact, have an interaction, you can do that. Otherwise, uh, if you want to carry out a discussion, you can do that. You are most welcome. Please do that. Hello? Yes, hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, it's clear, sir.
Sir, actually, the topic which you have discussed, like it is not there in the second unit, sir.
Okay, who all have your materials with you?
Myself, I have.
Could you please turn on your back cam, ma'am? Show us the index page. That could be a good discussion. Anyone else who's a little more proficient with the phone who can just show the back page? Two people can show us multiple pages. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you, Sirisha. So that is the index page which is visible right now. These are the units and these are the topics.
Yes.
Professor, could you please give us an outline of today's lecture, what topics it covers, or is it a generic sense of a lecture which you want to give? We have got,
Sir, there is
yes, please.
oh, that link is not opening in my phone.
Which
Now
link are you
only
talking about?
morning, first, second, third, fourth class is there, no fifth.
We'll get
Yesterday
to
you
that.
said
We'll get to that momentarily. Yes, but right now let Sirisha share the page. We will go on the topics as professor
no,
is here.
I am attending only one evening class. This link you send, no? That's why I'm pressing and that password.
I have not sent any link. You're talking about the group? You're talking in the group, someone has sent you a link talking about that. Okay, Sirisha, please unmute yourself so that you come on speaker view. I can just read out.
Okay.
Thank you. So could you zoom in a little bit more, please?
Wait.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Take your time. So, Professor, we have had the contents right now being showed. Cameos of English classroom, which we talked about yesterday. Theoretical biases and classroom practices. English common subjects and classes. Role of the English teacher. So today's lecture goes on what sidelines? Hold on a minute. Let me take a screenshot of that. Thank you very much. You can turn off your camera. I can see the topics right now.
4 black, 6 black screenshot తీసుకోండి.
ఒక్క నిమిషం అమ్మా తీసుకుంటున్నాను.
Why DV, you don't have the material?
No, I'm in office.
No, you were doing the PDF, no? For Tawseef sir.
That was done yesterday.
You don't have the copy?
What PDF are we referring to? PDF was supposed to come.
PDF.
We were discussing and working on a way to get a PDF copy to sir.
Yeah, that's what yesterday you did not get that.
Infrastructurally, I was incapable.
Okay.
No, there is no PDF copy available actually, but I have the contents with me. Okay, the syllabus, the copy is with me, the index and everything. So basically you said that which topic we were discussing actually. It was regarding unit number 2. So we have been talking about theoretical basis, theoretical methodologies, or techniques, methodologies, or approach to English language teaching is all about theoretical basis. Okay. Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. So we have been talking about unit 2 from tomorrow onwards. In the in tomorrow's class, in the next class, we will be talking about the English classroom and the subject classroom. We will cover this unit, and with that we will cover the role of the English teacher also. Okay, because we have to make it a bit fast so that all the units are being covered. Okay, so till now we have been talking about cameos of English classroom, which talks about the description, the setting of the classroom, and theoretical basis is all about your techniques, what technique you are using, what are the different techniques, what are the different methodologies, what are the different pedagogies, or what are the different approaches. That is what is theoretical basis. So please don't get confused. It's there. You go through your textbook, it's there, it might be there. Okay, but I'm not using your textbook thoroughly. I'm collecting the material from other books, okay, other reference books, but I have your syllabus copy with me. Any questions, anything you want to ask me, or if you want to have an interaction, you can do that also. I'll be happy, more than happy. We have still 10 minutes to go. At least we have 5 minutes, 7 minutes to go.
Professor, I need your permission just to clarify a doubt which was asked by one of my course mates. So ideally, when you look at your class schedule, there are 5 papers, 5 separate Zoom links, and 5 separate passwords. Irrespective of which class is joined where, you're supposed to sit with all your 5 materials, or don't sit with any materials. This would be my personal suggestion to you, which can be right or wrong. All right, click on the first link, enter the first password when it's 10:30. Click on the second link, enter your password when it's 12 o'clock. Click on the third link and enter your password when it's 1:30, and so on and so forth. All 5 links will remain operational the entire day. This is pretty much like the American schooling system, where you get up from a class and go to a different class, where you don't sit in one class and the professor comes to yours.
Yes, and you can also use.
And DV first class is not the 6 course 6. It will
no. Please don't add extra
Course
data over
10.
here.
No,
Time
no,
based,
what you are
link
telling
based.
is wrong. Like that, that's what I was trying to tell you.
See,
Yes, please.
1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute. If you check your website also, browse, BRAAOU. Okay, then you have this option of online classes. You can click on that. Then it says it will give you multiple options like student